It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Thank you so much for being here. Here we go, Memorial Day weekend. Lots of people traveling. I'll be heading to the airport, I don't know, probably about 10:30 in the morning. Catch a few Z's.
All right.
Head to the airport. It's become tradition, heading to Florida.
Gary, Jerry, and Mary for the big annual tradition.
Gary, Jerry, and Mary.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Gary, Jerry, and Mary.
Now, just so you know who I'm visiting, Jerry is the young man, now an old man, that I used to work with at the bank.
Yeah. All right.
And my best story about Jerry. You ready? My best story.
All right.
I've told it before.
Yeah.
And it was after I was in college, and we were working at the bank together. I met Jerry working at a bank. All right. Now, he was a real cool dude, and I was a complete nerd. And for some reason, he embraced me. I don't know why. Still today. I'll ask him again today. Why did you embrace me? I was such a little nerd, and you were. He goes, look at you now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
now you're an old nerd.
Now I'm an old nerd, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I've told the story of working at the disco for 2 weeks at the Port Shark in Cheektowaga, New York. It's like, yeah, I could see the theater of the mind. What did this place look like? There was a small shark in a shark tank, and the DJ booth was in a shark's mouth.
Yeah.
So the mouth was open. And this was, I don't know, was Jaws? When did Jaws come out? Because this was like
76.
Okay,
77?
all right, that would have been it. Then that's when I worked there.
Yeah.
But just for 2 weeks, a guy who I went to college with, worked at the college radio station with, said,
75. Okay.
Okay, so it'd been 76 then.
Okay.
Yeah, it was because I remember the summer 76, and he said, could you fill in for me for 2 weeks? I spin tunes at the Port Shark at disco. I'm like, no, I am I going to go to the dentist and get, my teeth pulled out without any Novocaine? Why would I do that? And I forgot they paid something, pretty well. And he said, come on, do me a favor. I just really want to go on this vacation. He goes, I'll make it easy. I'll give you the list. So he gave me like 4 lists, really, of like an entire 6 hours of music, where to put what, and like 3 different playlists or 4 different playlists, so I could just follow it and play it.
Right.
Because I was clueless on disco music. I didn't have a clue. That wasn't my stuff.
Yeah, right.
So so of course I show up there in my corduroy pants and flannel shirt.
You were a rebel.
Well, no, that's what I wore.
It's actually, those actually. Everybody heard you coming though, because corduroy.
I don't know if they were corduroy. It just sounds good. It could have been jeans, but I've always
I like corduroy.
There's a little
sounds better
embellishment in the story there, but it was, but it was summertime when I started working there, so or late summer.
Yeah,
which means late summer in Buffalo it might have been corduroy pants. But so I go there and they love me. They absolutely love me. And so at the end of the 2 weeks, the manager came up to me and said, look, we'd like to keep you here. And I said, well, what would that mean? I mean, what about, the guy's name was Rick. I go, what about Rick? They go, well, we just let him go. And I went, sorry, I really have no interest in playing this type of music. And they offered me, I can't remember what it was, but it was a lot. It was like, what? And he goes, yeah, we'd be willing to offer it to you. We'd have to let Rick go. And he said, and you'd have to change a little bit, because we'd want more of a uniform kind of thing for the disc jockey to match, some of our, male bartenders and stuff. So
yeah,
we'd want you to wear leather pants, a silk shirt, unbuttoned down to the navel, with the gold chain with the shark's tooth at the end.
If you button your shirt up, do they dock your pay?
I don't know, but I just said, see ya. And so I was looking for another job. Because I was already working the one job at the bank during college, but I was, as I've always mentioned, for a significant portion of my college, I worked the two jobs, club DJing and college. So my buddy Jerry says, there's a place out near me, the Rickenbach. It's a great rock and roll bar. You'd like it.
Yeah. All right.
I said, okay, let me go out and check. So I interviewed, and they said, well, what we want to do is we want to try out next Friday. Midnight, you'd come on. Just stay on for 1 hour, and then we'll talk. And so I showed up. And I also exaggerate. I always say I was hardly out of puberty yet, so I was like, hello, boys and girls, how are you? What's going on? And I'm here to play some rock and roll for you.
Right.
It makes it better. My voice probably wasn't that bad, but it makes the story better, doesn't it?
Yeah, right. And you did exaggerate. You were nowhere near out of puberty.
Exactly, right. That's why I look so young today.
You're still not quite out of puberty.
Right.
One day.
All right, wait a minute. No Wayne's World 2 quotes at all. So I get in there to, I get up there, it's 12 o'clock, and I've got my first song lined up. Now, remember, we're the border of Canada, so a lot of Canadian tunes were popular. So I picked, and you hear it in hockey arenas all the time.
Yeah.
The Canadian band Trooper, Raise a Little Hell. Mm-hmm. You hear it, if anybody's ever gone to an NHL game, I think it's like universal across Canada and the United States. They play that, and it starts out, Raise a Little Hell. Well, this is sort of a rock bar, and I'll call it a nice biker bar. Bikers came in, but they weren't like bad bikers. All right. And, in fact, they'd always come in and go, all right, challenge us, and I'll let you know that I was, and I don't know why, but I could chug a beer, and I would only do it once a night, and I never lost once. Never lost once to anybody. But I would only do it once a night. But I go in there, and it's time to do it, and I get up there, and I probably, hello, boys and girls, or whatever,
On the beer thing, by the way, I happen to know why.
Why?
Irish.
Well, that's racist.
Is it racist if it's true?
I really like Donna Chang. I really like Asian Pacific Islanders. That's racist, Jerry. How is it racist if I like them?
Seinfeld.
Exactly. Donna Chang. And then her name was like Donna Chang Ski or something. She just shortened it.
Yeah, she just shortened it.
George's mother she was quoting Confucius, and she's like, I want her to give me advice. You're not Chinese. Oh, my. But so I go up there and I kill for the hour. Just kill. Yeah. I mean, people, I started that song, and people were jumping on the tables. They were going crazy. They were just freaking out. And I finished my hour, and the guy, who was spinning just sort of looked at me like, what in the world how did that happen?
Yeah.
The DJ that, I replaced for an hour. I go meet with the manager and owner. I can still remember the owner. You're the best damn DJ I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen a reaction like that ever. So I go out, and my buddy Jerry was there. I mean, he was there that Friday night to see me. And I walk out, and I said, Jerry, I just killed. He goes, no, you didn't. I bought everybody in this bar probably 5 shots over the last couple of hours and told them when my buddy gets up there, go crazy. So you owe me like $100.
Well, there you go.
True story. True story. And I worked there. I think I worked there for like probably a year and a half.
Yeah.
Maybe. I worked there all the way through out of college, probably 6 months.
Okay.
And then real life hit.
And then you realize, oh wait, I'm going to have to do something else. So
yeah. That's right. Time to grow up.
Time to get a job.
Well, I've often said, because people say, "Wow, I've heard your radio show. You work 2 jobs, during most of your college. That must have been tough. And I went, well, the club DJing really wasn't work.
Yeah.
I was getting paid to go to a bar and party with everybody. If I was a bartender, that would have been work.
Right.
But the club DJ, the DJ, you're like, hey, let's go. Play this. All right, chug a beer. Only one. So it really, we often talk about, Jerry and I might have even had that discussion because we both worked a lot during college, and we'll always look at each other and go, did we ever miss any good times? It's like, did we ever say we're working too much and going to college and we're missing out on all the parties? Go, I don't think we ever said that. How did we do that? Like, we never slept.
Right.
You're going on 2-3 hours of sleep a night. I'm being serious. I didn't sleep much during college. Maybe it's what makes this show so easy to do.
Yeah. I technically slept right through college because I never went. Yeah.
Well, that's the Trump in us because Trump doesn't really sleep. Well, he was up.
Actually, that's funny you say that because I was just thinking about someone when my wife and I went through, the specialized training for special needs children when we were fostering to adopt our daughter that is the light of my life today. And I remember during that, she brought up this nurse that was doing some of the training, talked about the A-type personalities and how they can often and most often get by with 3 to 4 hours a day of sleep. And she mentioned one of the first people she mentioned was Donald Trump. Now, this is years before he even ran for president. And then I think Martha Stewart was the other one that she mentioned. She said they sleep a few hours a day, and they can get by on that. And I remember that discussion and the fact that she brought up his name. And again, he wasn't president. He wasn't running for president back then. But yeah, the A-type personality, right?
Mm-hmm.
I actually, this week I've been getting by on about 3.5 to 4. It's been a busy week. There are weeks where it's a full-on 7 or 8, but I can get by on 3 or 4.
Yeah,
I know when I can and I know when I can't. It's weird. I can tell when it's not going to be okay and when it's going to be okay. And it's just now 28 years of doing this.
Now, it may be three hours in a shift, but I'm 6-7 hours at least a night, then longer on the weekend. But it was last week where I saw that. And I'd seen it like it was in the middle of the Trump trial, and they said, well, Trump was up last night at 1:30 in the morning tweeting. Like, well, my God, he was in court by 9, so it means he must have been up by 5 or something.
Yeah.
Just with, I'm sure with the stuff he's got to do.
Yep.
I'm like, wow, how does he do that?
Right.
At this, I can't, and he's got me by a few years, and you by what? 17, 18, 19 years, something like that.
It's somewhere around there.
Yeah. I cannot sleep. I could not do 3-4 hours sleep a night. I couldn't do that. I had trouble sleeping in one of my in the second sleep shift about 4 or 5 months ago. That was horrible. I was like, I've got to, and somehow it just went away, and everything's been fine now. So, but I was desperate. It was like I got to do now. The first sleep shift when I get home from work was fine. It was the second one for some reason. I don't know what it was. And it was really started like Thanksgiving, Christmas into January. I just could not. And that's when it's dark when I would go to sleep at 5 o'clock. I just could not sleep. So thank goodness that went away. That was temporary. But we all know anybody who works his shift, Yep. We're not telling you anything you don't know already. It's like, oh my God. Coming up. The hurricane forecast is in.
Here we go. I'm sure it'll be spot on this year, right?
Well, I mean, I feel like, in a way, it's NOAA doing it, but I feel like I'm doing the Farmer's almanac what's going to happen in the winter because they've been off so many times.
Yeah.
And so when they come out and it's the hurricane forecast highest ever issued.
Mm-hmm.
You're like,
yeah.
How much of it is politics? You have to ask yourself these days with the climate change and this administration.
Well, the whole climate change agenda is to drive the fear. And what greater fear than the immediate fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which would be the forecast for the next few months.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It starts June 1st, so next week.
Yep.
That coming up, 866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howes Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Many of us outdoor grillers try to save time on cookout day by partially cooking meat and poultry items the night before, then finishing the food on the grill next day. However,
we don't recommend to do that.
In fact, USDA food safety expert Meredith Carruthers says it's downright dangerous.
Because what you're ultimately doing is bringing the food up into what's called the danger zone, which is a range of temperatures between 40 degrees and 140 degrees. And ultimately, if the food is sitting in that danger zone for way too long, it can produce bacteria at a certain level that can be quite dangerous and can't be killed by the further cooking or further reheating later on. So if you don't fully cook your food, you're ultimately letting it sit in that danger zone for too long. And then you're going to be refrigerating it and bringing it back up through that danger zone again without bacteria fully having been killed.
A better idea, cook the meat completely the night before and then sear and warm it on the grill next day. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, just very briefly. I mean, it's a Friday, so I had to go to the Babylon Bee and look at some of the headlines. And my favorite one, AOC demands to know where Alito bought an upside-down U.S. flag.
That's funny.
She was not happy. She was not happy that Trump was in her district yesterday.
No, not at all.
She was not a happy
not
camper at all.
Yeah, when I first saw the headline, the news alert come across, in South Bronx, I didn't put two and two together, and then it wasn't long at all. Then all of a sudden, social media blew up. She was fuming that he was there.
Well, if you saw CNN at all, I mean, one of the reporters was there saying, a lot of the Trump rallies, you'll get people that, come in from, long way out of town.
Yeah.
And, they were hoping to say, well, it's everybody's out of town. And they're like, there's an amazingly a huge number of people from the Bronx that are here.
Yeah.
And it was like, you're watching CNN, you're just like, oh, it's just killing them. And there was a huge contrast yesterday.
Yeah.
And I wasn't the only one. One of the first things I told you, I said the contrast was amazing.
Yeah.
When you look at, because the news stories that were going on was they were out there so early lining up that the media was covering that all in the early afternoon. They were covering it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they were covering the protest that looked quite, quite hectic or whatever.
Chaotic, yeah.
Chaotic?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's even a better word. Chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had Biden making his speech. And this is one of the other headlines. What luck. Biden finds pre-written answer to a completely spontaneous press question right on his note card. I mean, it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was really bad with the president of Kenya yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
setting the standard for America. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So here it is. New preseason hurricane forecast is the highest ever issued. Brace yourself, Florida.
Here we go.
This is from Yahoo News. NOAA predicts an above-average hurricane season for 2024 with 17 to 25 named storms, 8 to 13 hurricanes, and 4 to 7 major hurricanes. It starts June 1st, just so you know. Let me just look at it here. It's the highest ever forecast by the federal agency. Ever forecast, that is.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
That's the highest forecast we've had. It's reason to be concerned, of course, but not alarmed. Well, you're only alarmed when it's headed your way.
Yeah.
It's like
We know what time, we know when to be alarmed.
I'm only alarmed if Al Gore or Leonardo DiCaprio makes a forecast.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you know. If they say it's going to be calm and beautiful, you know a storm's coming. If they say a storm is coming, you know it's going to be calm and beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. We'll keep this.
Okay.
Keep the forecast.
All right.
Just to see whether it comes true or not.
Yeah. Well, I think we can all hope that it won't. I'd like to, in fact, hope for 0. Now, there will be a major hurricane, I'm sure, but let's hope that, or I'll say this, 0 human impact. I'd love to have one of those.
I'm sure there will be
one of those seasons, right?
Like there every year, I'm sure we'll be where we are looking at the Gulf of Mexico, as we always do, to see what happens there.
Yeah.
Because, and I can't, last year, was it bad last year? Did one hit the West Coast last year of Florida? Can't remember. All I know is where I lived, when I lived in Navarre, Florida, never had a hurricane hit there. I know they've been hit hard. I mean, the Panhandle part has been hit hard the last couple of years.
Yeah,
but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Remember all the predictions. What was it? I can't remember what it was. Remember one of the years, and I forgot whether it was a few years after Katrina, where they were expecting, it was like, it's just going to be horrible every year, and then it just got very quiet. Remember that? I believe it was after Katrina.
It was 2008?
But
it was after Katrina.
I remember as the predictions, they went hog wild on it. It didn't come close to it, and that always just sits back in the back.
Well, there's a couple of things. The climate change people are often, or most often, in the whole mode of trying to get people worked up and instilling fear in people, and then blaming people for the hurricanes, for causing the hurricanes. And then there's something that I've noticed in recent years, and that's the kind of the clickbaiting on severe weather in general. Here's when the next round of storms could affect you. Here's when, and it's like, all right. I understand the drama, and I also understand the competition of trying to get people over to your webpage. But if you're a news organization, storms expected Thursday. Here are the details. I'm going to click on it. People are going to click on it because they're concerned about the weather. But it seems that so much of it has become clickbaiting. And where they're overblowing it and saying, okay, well, this is our typical garden variety spring season in this area. And, that's the thing, is that when we kind of know it when all the local meteorologists or even the national meteorologists are looking at it going, man, there's a super severe risk in this area. And everybody's focused on it. It's like, okay, time to pay attention, make a plan, that kind of thing. And in Tornado Alley, growing up in Tornado Alley, that's something that you're always aware of. You want to make that plan. And we've got that technology to keep us safe. And it's just sometimes very annoying when the clickbaiting is happening. And I think it happens far too often when it comes to weather.
Didn't get a chance to hit this, but did you see the police video of Scottie Scheffler's arrest?
Yeah.
And the thing is, people are making immediate assumptions. There's nothing there. Well, I don't know if anything happened before it got to that point. That's what
you and I have
don't
always said. What we don't know is what we can't see.
Yeah. And so if that was it, what the one, not the police video, not the police cam in the car, but the other one that was attached to that pole that showed him pull around. If that's the entirety of the altercation, there's nothing there.
There's nothing there, yeah.
I don't know if that's the entirety of the altercation.
Right. Did something happen before that? Right.
Because one thing is, the reports were that the cop went up and, basically dragged him out of the car. The police officer was talking to him for a number of seconds. I didn't count the seconds. It could have been 30 or 45 seconds. It's not like he went up and immediately, because he was being dragged along the car, grabbed him, pulled him out. It took a while before he got out of the car, and it didn't look like the police officer at that point was animated in any way. And so that was, and everybody was making the assumption, there's nothing there. It's the cop. I don't know that. And by the way, the record of the police officer doesn't matter. And we've always stated it doesn't matter what they've done you may use that in court later on when you have more information and say, look, this is a cop that's been doing it, but you have to look at every instance, as we have always stated, every single one, you have to look at by the facts on the ground that you have. And so, like I said, if you look at the video, if that's the entirety of the encounter between Scheffler and the police officer, the police have some explaining to do.
Yeah, right.
Because it's certainly what was not in the report. Now, if the incident occurred, I don't know, 150 feet before that, but then it still doesn't match up because it said he dragged the cop 10 yards. Well, that's 30 feet. And so I saw, in that video that, and he was going slow, but he went probably a total of 30 feet in that video. And so there's more questions that I have on that.
Right.
But we'll see. Now, the police are still continuing with the charges. The cop has been disciplined for not turning on his camera.
Right.
But I don't know. And Scheffler's attorney said, no, there'll be no plea bargain. We're not bargaining anything. It's either you try us or you dismiss the charges. He hasn't done anything wrong.
Right.
And the thing is, when you think of somebody like Scott Scheffler, you ask, what is the intent? What's the motive?
Right.
What was the motive of the so-called felony? So far, nobody can find that one, can they?
No, I mean, the way the thing played out and how it happened, how it went down, it was completely bizarre, would be out of character from what we know of Scheffler. It's not that it's impossible. It's just, wait a minute, there's some things that don't add up. So let the evidence play out. Let the system, the process here, play out the way it should. And I don't know. Again, it was kind of the melodramatic approach to it in the media that morning, which, to be fair, to their point, it was kind of surprising. But it just seemed that it was because there was a short clip that I saw, and I mean 2 or 3 seconds, of when they were walking beside him and he was handcuffed, right? I at that point didn't see the whole slamming him up against the car and the whole thing as it was being described. It's like, okay, well, this is odd. This is really weird. What's going on? Then the story came out of the bus and the accident and the man that was killed there. It's like, and then at first, well, those two aren't related. And then Scheffler makes this statement when he gets back later, and it was actually related. It's like, okay, that makes sense that it would be a chaotic scene, and he was confused. It was dark. It was rainy. All these things going on, and they were rerouting everyone, and he's one of the players.
Yeah.
So he's got to be somewhere.
And that's the entrance.
And
that's the entrance.
They have a tea time. I mean, he's got to be on time. Right. And so it would make sense that if they're sending you somewhere else and you need to be, on the opposite end or wherever, then wait a minute. Well, how am I going to get over there? If that was the case. But if there's any confusion whatsoever, then it could lead to something like what we saw. We'll see if it plays out in what they do on the charges and what evidence they try and present. But the whole thing seemed weird.
And those would be the questions I would have, because it was like, okay, the cop was dragged 10 yards. Well, we saw the vehicle, and then the car stopped after 10 yards is what's in the police report.
Yeah.
Well, I saw the car move a total of 10 yards in that video. The 30 feet he went. He wasn't going fast at all, where you would even have to hang on to the car, because that's the thing. Okay, the police officer hung onto the car, was dragged and scraped his knee or whatever.
Right.
And I'm thinking, well, he wasn't going that fast to drag anybody in that 30 feet that I saw. You never saw the cop being dragged. You saw the cop coming after the vehicle. And so there are questions that need to be answered there for anyone looking at, what's the truth here. But when you saw that, okay, then he, reached in, took him out of the car, slammed him up again, that there was not, did you see any type of real intensity from that cop if that cop had been dragged?
That's the thing. Because typically what happens, especially if an officer's life has been at risk in any way, in the moments after that, they're often, clearly and visibly very nervous. And when they were walking with Scheffler, and I assumed that there were two officers there, I would assume that one of those two would be, who they were referring to. I didn't see any of that kind of demeanor whatsoever.
And so you see the charge against him, again, the felony. And so you're like, okay, when you heard that, even the reports that, they grabbed him and, put him against the side and got him out very quickly. They didn't get him out very quickly out of the vehicle.
Right.
It wasn't as if, and because the thing is, if then you charge him with the felony, what you're saying is you knowingly were trying to hurt me.
Yeah.
In a felony. So you're using this car as a weapon. You're out of that car. I mean, you grab him, you open that door, you drag him out of that vehicle, right?
Yeah.
That's what you would do.
Yep.
If you believe he was using his car as a weapon. That did not seem to be any type of excitement level that would be caused, that would be caused by a police officer believing a felony was committed against him, using the car as a weapon.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it didn't add up.
Yeah. Something doesn't add up in this right now. There's something either we're missing or something doesn't add up. 866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Memorial Day weekend, the weekend that we set aside, and Monday, the day that we set aside to honor those who gave the ultimate sacrifice and made it possible for us to do what we do right here each and every day. You know, freedom of speech is something that is still rare and is slowly disappearing, even in republics. You know, we see it, for example, in Canada. We see how freedom of speech has been worn away. So we recognize it each and every day that what we have here, the freedoms are just they're not random. They're not awarded to you. They've been earned. Yep. And I didn't earn this freedom of speech. Soldiers that died earned this freedom of speech for all of us.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.